take about 30 seconds to get set up in a sec. But what we'll have is probably a range of people from someone who's never bought property before, so therefore they have no idea with their finance, to potentially people who obviously know a fair bit. What I'll go through should hopefully explain it to your brand new first home buyers from that perspective and that side of things, but it should also make a lot of sense and add a lot of value to people who have done it before. So just bear with me for a sec. Yeah, maybe. So say for example what we have is you have your normal type of person, maybe it's your first home buyer, single, couple, whatever it may be. It could also, this will also apply to your companies, your trusts, your like 16 properties, your 20 directors. Doesn't really matter how simple, how complicated it is, it's going to apply to everything. So what I suppose we can call this, say, the fundamentals of lending, and what it's going to be is what we need to do to obviously get our finance, what sort of options we have available. So what you end up having is you'll have a particular person, and we're going to say, obviously, what options do we have available? So we say, it doesn't matter what the situation is, tick 5 boxes, and we're going to get an approval. So from a broker perspective, we can say we've got 22 different banks, we've got 3.59% interest rates, so whatever it might be. There's no point sending a particular deal to a 3.59% bank if it's not going to get approved in the first place. So essentially what we're trying to say is, who's going to, out of our 22 different banks, who's going to approve us? And we just say 22 different banks, 200 credit policies. That's a huge matrix of information to try and digest, try and work out who's going to accept what. So we say, simplify it to 5 boxes, we're getting approval. Now, from a capacity perspective, it doesn't matter what bank it is. Every single bank is legally obliged not to put an applicant into a loan that they can't afford. What that means is every single bank is legally obliged to make reasonable inquiry into income, the living expenses, and the liabilities to work out what that borrowing capacity is. This is basically the start of that credit policy. So like from an income perspective, if you're 3 months casual, you're 3 years full-time, you're self-employed, every bank's going to look at that sort of stuff differently. From a living expense perspective, there's also benchmarks in play. So if you say, hey Mike, I'm a single bloke, I spend about $500 a month on my living expenses, obviously you're doing better than me, but at the same time, the banks have these benchmarks, these safety buffers built in, where they're going to say, no, a single person's probably going to be about $1,500, a couple's going to be about $2,500, a couple with 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, a single person on 150 grand a year and a single person on 50 grand a year, all going to have sort of different levels of living expenses. From a liabilities perspective, obviously, because if you already have credit cards, if you already have personal loans, if you already have home loans, car loans, HECS debt, tax debt, afterpay, it's all that needs to be taken into account because it's already a current commitment. So what you do is obviously you grab your income, take out those living expenses, take out those liabilities, and then that's going to give you that borrowing capacity afterwards. Obviously, the higher your income, the lower your living expenses, the lower your liabilities, the more borrowing capacity you're going to have available. And obviously the opposite is also true, so the lower income and higher liabilities also going to hurt the situation. That's how we tick our capacity box. And that's how we work out what our maximum loan amount is going to be. From a collateral perspective, every single bank is going to take obviously their loan, they're going to secure it to the property by the way of mortgage. Even if it's an existing property and that existing property has a loan on it from a different bank, just because that bank is going to accept that security as collateral doesn't mean every bank will. So therefore, like to give you a bit of an idea, if it's a block of land bigger than 50 acres, some banks are going to have a problem with it. If it's an inner city apartment, so like your Fortescue Valleys, maybe your sort of high density places in here, some banks are going to have a problem. If you had a block of land and it had high voltage power lines within 50 metres of a back fence, some banks are going to have a problem. Apartments smaller than 40 square metres, a block of land which has multiple dwellings on one title, particular postcodes. There's going to be a few restrictions around there as well. Also, some banks would steer clear of your construction. So, like your HSBCs and INGs, fantastic banks, love them. Not going to do construction though. From a capital perspective, if we need to borrow, say, or if we want to buy property at $500,000, the bank's not going to generally give you $500,000 short of having a guarantor. So what that means is there needs to be some sort of contribution from the applicant. So whether that's savings, it's gifts, the first homeowners grant, proceeds of sale from another property. Alternatively, if you already own property, you can use the equity in your own to push up that security value, or you can also use that equity in someone else's property, say as a guarantor. So from a capital perspective, we're working towards LVR percent. So your LVR, so from an applicant or from a buyer's perspective, everyone talks about deposit, your 5% deposit, your 10% deposit, your 20% deposit. From the bank's perspective, they talk about LVR, which is the opposite. So your 5% deposit is going to be your 95% LVR, your 20% deposit is going to be 80% LVR, and effectively, the bigger the deposit, or the lower the LVR, the lower the mortgage insurance or no mortgage insurance there could be, and also the lower the interest rates. So you get that 20% deposit down, we're not paying mortgage insurance, we're also going to get the best interest rates around. But if we have a 5% deposit, then we're probably going to end up at something above fours with ridiculous amounts of mortgage insurance. But if we sort of push it down, get more deposit in there, just get a better deal. From a character perspective, there's two, we'll divide it into two things. You get your big things. You get your big things like your bankruptcies, your court judgments, your defaults, your insolvencies. Obviously, we can't hide any of this. Every single applicant is going to have a credit check done on them. On that credit check, these things are going to pop up. If it is a default there, it's not the end of the world. There are banks that will still accept it. If our bankruptcy, same sort of thing. As you can probably imagine, if there's a default on file and the banks that do accept it, you can imagine obviously the interest rates aren't going to be the greatest thing in the world. They're there as solutions for particular situations, but it's just not meant to be attractive. But obviously, clear credit file, good conduct, all that sort of thing, we're looking good. And also, you've also got the small things. So say with the small things, you've got, it's those account conduct issues. Maybe you've got a few late payments, a few arrears, a few overdrawns, happens to the best of us. Maybe you've got about like $2,020 on your credit card, you put $2,000 in there, you get a late fee on that other $20, happened to us like a month ago. Well, obviously that could, and like a pattern of that could cause an issue with that particular bank. That's all good. We'll go to a different bank which may not care so much about that, and obviously we'll basically steer traffic that way as well. I mean, from a common sense perspective, we're also saying, does this whole situation make sense? So we're going to obviously look at this whole deal, does it all make sense? And say, imagine this, imagine you've got this 18-year-old fella, he's just come out of school, he's been working for 1 year in a $50,000 a year job, and he sits down and says, hey Mike, I've got $200,000 in savings. Okay, I mean, you start asking questions about that, and the assessor's definitely going to start asking questions about that. And obviously, if the story is this particular bloke, he's saved $10,000, but he got $190,000 a gift from his parents. Perfectly fine, good as gold. We'll get that gift letter from the parents. We'll obviously state it and we'll obviously declare it correctly, and we're all good. So it's just basically making sure that everything makes sense. Same thing as well. Say for example, you've got John. He's been working for McDonald's for 20 years as an executive of some branch somewhere, and he's on $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year, paying what 9.5% tax. Let's call it 10K. Should probably have at least $150,000 in super. He's got $10,000 in super. Assessor's also going to ask questions about that as well. But all it might be is a bit of commentary sometimes. So the commentary is going to be, well, John worked in New Zealand for 19 years. He's then moved over to Australia and he's been working at McDonald's for the last year here. So he has actually been working for them for that 10-year, 20-year period. And the reason of that, that common sense piece about why his super is so low is because he's obviously only been in Australia for a short period. Now, obviously, that applies to everything. We say if it's rental income, if it's businesses buying things, if the collateral is if you want to if you want to buy the whole 50 apartment block, if you want to buy just one block, if you have $2 million in deposit, or if you have $2 million in equity, if you have whatever it's going to be, tick those 5 boxes, we're going to get an approval, and depending on how we tick those 5 boxes, is going to dictate which banks we have available to us. And the only thing we basically go from here is say it's always good to get your pre-approval before you go out there, and we set a hypothetical budget. So we might say something along the lines of, with a pre-approval, we're going to grab all of this here, and this all gets ticked off with the bank, and we're going to set a hypothetical here. So from our collateral, you might say, hey Mike, it's going to be max 500K budget, because I want to get that stamp duty concession. It's going to be brand new, because I want to get that first homeowners grant. It's going to be Brisbane South Side, or maybe Brisbane Metro location. It's going to be owner-occupied. It's going to be an apartment. It's going to be a townhouse. It's going to be a house. It's going to be, like I've got a dog, so I need to have a backyard, so it's probably going to have a backyard there. So we might say something along the lines of Brisbane South Metro townhouse, sub $500,000, and as long as you go out there and find a house which fits into that category, as long as the valuation comes out good, you're going to be good as gold. Because the bank's already said you can afford it. The bank's already said, yep, we've seen your savings, or we've seen your first homeowners grant, we're good there. The bank's already done a credit check, so they know that's all good as well. They've looked over the whole situation and they say, yep, it all makes sense. Just go find a property that fits into what we've basically spoken about, the $500,000, whatever it might be. And as long as that comes in, get a contract of sale, get an evaluation, and it's basically all gravy from there. So yeah, I guess from the fundamentals of lending, whether it be your first home buyer or your 10 property investor sort of a thing, same rules apply. Tick 5 boxes to get an approval, and then obviously we'll work out what options we have to obviously go from there. But that's all I suppose from me. I suppose if any questions while I'm up, or no, easy. I'll leave some cards around, so if you have any questions, just shoot us an email, give us a phone call, and yeah, go from there.